It's 7 p.m. Thursday, May 2nd, here in Seoul.
Coming up on NEWSCENTER tonight. President Moon Jae-in says he won't compromise and will get to the bottom of the nation's political corruptions, which at one point intruded into state affairs during the previous Park Geun-hye administration.
The United States sends its sanctions waivers for Iranian oil imports for various countries, including South Korea. We'll look at how this will affect local industries.
The U.S. Federal Reserve keeps interest rates steady, citing robust American growth. The move comes despite pressure from President Donald Trump, who wants a big cut.
And K-pop sensation BTS scoops up 2 prizes at the Billboard Music Awards, including their first award in a major competition category. NEWSCENTER begins now. Good evening and welcome to Arirang News Center, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Noaram.
And I'm Han-daeun. Thanks for tuning in. We begin at the nation's top office. President Moon Jae-in says it's difficult to make compromises on the investigations on Korea's deep-rooted corruptions.
The president also expressed concerns over the deepening divide between the nation's conservatives and liberals, lawmakers and citizens alike. Park Hee-jun starts us off.
President Moon Jae-in says that there can be compromise only once the truth is revealed about the deep-rooted evils in society and when there is a consensus for building a new nation. The president addressed the issue of the ongoing drive to eradicate corruption during a working lunch with a dozen elders whose advice he sought on a range of state affairs. Attendees included a former prime minister, ex-ministers, judicial officers, and professors. During the discussions, the president said that although some feel the government should stop investigating such cases and work toward unity, the matter is beyond his control.
The president says that the government should not and cannot take control of ongoing investigations. If these allegations of corruption in state affairs are true, they would be serious violations of the Constitution, which is why it's difficult to find a compromise.
According to the spokesperson, the president said the greatest difficulty is the worsening conflict among politicians and among the people themselves. He said that he will work harder to try to bring them together despite their differences. At the event, a former head of the National Intelligence Service, Lee Jong-chan, raised the need for a new approach with Japan, especially with the enthronement of a new emperor. President Moon agreed to that. He said such relations are crucial for the country's national security and for economic development, but pointed out that the unfortunate history between the two sides is complicating the situation. And he expressed regret over how the Japanese government has amplified bilateral issues for political reasons. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
2 months after the no-deal Hanoi summit, Pyongyang and Washington remain at odds over denuclearization approach. Against such backdrop, Seoul's Foreign Minister Kang has said there are behind-the-scenes efforts being made to resume the talks and called on North Korea to see the issue in a broader scope. Our easy one for us tonight.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang says the U.S. agrees with Seoul on a comprehensive deal with steps to be taken in tandem, and that North Korea should take the next step. She was speaking Thursday in her quarterly press briefing.
South Korea and the U.S. share the view that there should be a comprehensive approach involving a step-by-step approach and parallel implementation. This is a good deal that everybody wants.
But to break the current impasse, Minister Kang said North needs to look at the matter more broadly. Despite the rhetoric from Pyongyang and Washington, which the minister called a pressure strategy, Kang said Seoul's role as a facilitator is not diminished but enhanced.
North Korea and the U.S. certainly want to resume the talks. The leaders' determination is certain. Our role becomes all the more important because this determination needs to take the form of actual talks.
To make that happen, Kang said Washington's Special Representative for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, will visit Seoul for a working-level meeting, reportedly next week. South Korean media say the meeting will most likely address the South Korean government's humanitarian aid to the North worth around $8 million. That aid has been held up since 2017 because, with the North's provocations, the international community wasn't able to find a good time to send it. But in any case, the aid is something Minister Kang said should be supported by the international community. However, Seoul's Unification Ministry, which handles inter-Korean affairs, said no food aid to the North is being considered at the moment. As for ties between South Korea and Japan, which are now frostier than ever, Minister Kang said the ministries in Seoul are keeping up to date with the Korean court rulings on Japan's use of forced labor during World War II. Seoul and Tokyo could have a chance to mend their ties at the end of June when the G20 countries hold their summit in Osaka. Minister Kang said Seoul is considering whether or not to go, and in the meantime will review other ways to make progress too. 이지원, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, top U.S. officials continue to stress that diplomacy is the key to North Korea's denuclearization, reiterating that Washington is ready to resume dialogue with Pyongyang. Our Kim Hyo-sun has more on Washington's latest stance.
Acting U.S. Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan pointed to diplomacy as the primary way to get North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons. In his testimony before the U.S. House of Representatives Appropriations Committee on Wednesday, Shanahan added the Pentagon continues to generate readiness in case diplomacy fails. He also stressed that North's denuclearization is his department's most pressing goal, which reaffirms that the Pentagon will continue to support dialogue between Pyongyang and Washington. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has reiterated that Washington is ready to resume dialogue with the North, adding he's hopeful about the regime's denuclearization process. In an interview with Fox News on Tuesday, the top U.S. diplomat said there's only one real approach to denuclearization, and that is to do it right and to begin to reduce the threat. Such remarks come as the North's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Sun-hee called on Washington late last month to change its current way of calculation and re-establish its stance. In the aftermath of the Hanoi summit in late February, Pyongyang has criticized top American officials, including Pompeo, through its state media, blaming them for leading talks into a dead end. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
The 6-month waiver on Iranian oil imports on a number of countries, including Korea, ended as of today, May 2nd. We now take a look at the impact it could have on the Korean economy and the outlook of global oil prices. Here's Arirang's senior economics correspondent, Kim Hae-sung.
Korea has gradually lowered its dependence on Iranian oil imports in case the U.S. decides to strengthen sanctions to a complete ban. In 2017, Iranian crude accounted for 13% of Korea's total oil imports that fell more than half to 5% last year. But Korea is still the second largest buyer of Iranian oil just after China, as the local petrochemical industry relies heavily on Iranian condensate oil, and local petrochemical companies have been importing over 20 million barrels as of March. An ultralight form of crude oil, condensate, is used to produce naphtha, the basic raw material for petrochemical products like plastic.
Korean petrochemical companies can replace Iranian condensate oil with oil from the U.S., but it is more expensive and the oil features lower purity. Export prices would go up, but profitability would go down. The local aviation industry will also be negatively affected.
Oil has rallied about 40% this year on an OPEC deal to cut supply and due to the political crisis in Venezuela, and has hit a 6-month high recently. If Iranian oil exports of 1 million barrels a day are wiped out, restricting supply and pushing prices upward, local industries, including auto and electronics, will also be affected due to higher raw material costs. A study by Hyundai Research Institute showed that if oil prices rise to $70 a barrel, consumption and investment will decrease, driving down GDP growth by 0.6%. Consumers will likely feel the rise in oil prices. Starting next Tuesday, Korea's fuel tax cut that had been in place for around 6 months will be slashed from 15% to 7%. The move will drive up gasoline prices by 6 cents a liter. The Ministry of Economy and Finance said earlier this week it will provide discount gas stations and help local companies diversify oil imports. Overall, the impact of the Iranian oil import ban on the local economy will depend on whether the U.S. and OPEC countries like Saudi Arabia can provide enough oil and keep prices stable. 김혜성, Arirang News.
Finance ministers and central bank governors of South Korea, China and Japan gathered along with ASEAN members to discuss injecting local currency into the region when in financial crises. South Korea's finance minister also announced he will tour major conglomerates in the nation over the next 2 months to encourage them to invest more. Our Cha Sang-mi has the details.
South Korea, China, and Japan signed a joint statement with the members of ASEAN to enhance the Chiang Mai Initiative Multilateralization, or CMIM, in a bid to secure regional financial stability. The CMIM, which is linked to the IMF, is a set of bilateral currency swap arrangements established in May 2000 that provide emergency infusions of currency to member countries suffering from liquidity crisis. It followed a meeting between the finance ministers and central bank governors of the three nations, during which they welcomed the idea of local currency contribution and reaffirmed their commitment to resist all forms of trade protectionism. The three financial authorities discussed upholding an open and rule-based multilateral trade and investment system, as well as accelerating intra-regional trade and investment activities. Meanwhile, in line with the government's efforts to boost the nation's economy, South Korean Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi announced he will tour conglomerates over the next 2 months to drum up support for government policy. Speaking to reporters on the sidelines of the meetings Thursday, Hong said conglomerates should expand investment to overcome the economic woes at hand. The minister's remark come after data released by the central bank last week showed the lowest ever quarterly gross domestic product since the 2008 financial crisis. As for trade, Hong expressed concern that Korean-made cars could become the target of U.S. import tariffs and said the ministry is looking into ways to address any emergencies. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has decided to keep interest rates steady despite calls from President Donald Trump to cut them. The Fed cited healthy growth in the U.S. economy. Kim Da-mi reports.
Chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve Jerome Powell announced that the central bank will keep its benchmark rate in the range of 2.25% to 2.5%, unchanged since March. The Federal Open Market Committee explained that the labor market is strong and that economic activities continue to rise at a solid rate.
All I can see is that we have an economy where the expansion is continuing, growth is at a healthy level, the labor market is strong, we see job creation, we see wages moving up. Inflation is low, which gives us the ability to be patient, and we do expect it to move up, and we want it to move up to 2%. So I see us on a good path for this year.
The Fed acknowledged both overall and core inflation have declined and are running below the central bank's 2% target. The chairman also added that there was a slowdown in household spending and business investment in the first quarter, noting that the basis for a healthy economy is consumer spending and business investment. Earlier on Tuesday, U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted that the Fed should reduce rates by 1% to help the U.S. economy go up like a rocket. While the Wall Street Journal reported that the key officials of the Fed are reviewing conditions of the benchmark rate, the Fed chief said for now, low inflation allows the central bank to be patient in deciding on any further changes to its overnight benchmark lending rate. The head of Bank of Korea, Lee Ju-yeol, commented that the Fed's decision was in line with expectations and also hinted no rate hikes or cuts anytime soon. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
The Science Ministry will invest more than $25 million in immersive content for the 5G network. The government also set a long-term plan to nurture new technologies, including autonomous vehicles. Yoon Jung-min has more.
The government will create a fund of some $26 million to promote immersive content like virtual reality and augmented reality for the 5G wireless network. The Presidential Committee on the Fourth Industrial Revolution met on Thursday with experts in ICT and government agencies, including the Ministry of Science and ICT and the Ministry of SMEs, to establish a long-term plan for the new technology.
New technologies are initiating new services. Global IT companies like Facebook are likely to put more investment in them. Some may think it is a bit early for the investment, considering the pace of device growth, but in fact, it's too late to start investing when the technology is already prospering. We're here today to take a preemptive measure.
The Science Ministry said the investment into immersive content will particularly help venture companies and small and medium-sized businesses. Also up for discussion was plans to develop autonomous vehicles. The government recognized the importance of nurturing the industry amid a rapidly changing industrial landscape, such as rising Chinese technology and global restructuring in the automobile sector. Among the future growth engines designated by the committee are immersive content, smart factories, and autonomous vehicles. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Former UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, who heads the new Presidential Committee on Climate and Air Quality, has called for bipartisan support to tackle fine dust pollution. Earlier today, he met with the leadership of the ruling Democratic Party and two minor opposition parties. Ban stressed that there should be no divide among the parties when it comes to dealing with fine dust, given the severity of the situation and because it has a direct impact on people's health. He also asked for the parties to participate in the Presidential Committee. The parties vow to support the committee, whether it be through legislation or budget allocations. Ban will meet with the main opposition Liberty Korea Party later this month. Young South Koreans are struggling with a range of challenges these days, such as getting a job, finding a partner and starting a family. Now the government is going to form a committee to try and find ways to address these challenges through policy. Kim Min-ji has the details.
The South Korean government will establish a committee under the Prime Minister's office to overlook youth-related policies. The decision was reached during a meeting on Thursday between the ruling Democratic Party, the government, and the presidential office. As legislation is required before the committee's establishment, a government task force will be put together beforehand.
When the committee is established, we'll be handling overall youth-related policies. On top of dealing with employment, we'll be able to tackle a wide range of issues related to young people, like education, welfare, marriage, and the lower birth rate.
The presidential office and ruling party will also be making individual efforts by creating separate affiliated bodies solely dedicated to working on youth-related matters. The ruling party also vowed to swiftly pass related laws by seeking cooperation from the opposition bloc, as well as boost next year's budget to deal with youth-related issues.
We will be taking long-term efforts to ease the burden on young people. We will meet with young people to find appropriate solutions.
Conditions haven't been the most favorable for the country's young people, weighed down in part by a slowing economy and aging population. The youth jobless rate was at 10.8% in March, but a broader figure hovers at around 25%, the highest since relevant data was first compiled in 2015. That figure takes into account people that have given up on looking for work, as well as part-time workers. On top of that, rising living costs and worsening income polarization are also a burden for the average youth.
We will join efforts to systematically deal with the issues and come up with policies that meet young people's standards.
The three sides acknowledge that despite efforts until now, they've been unable to properly address youth-related issues, and the policies have been devised by the older generations. They vow to boost communication and encourage participation among young people when drawing up policies, as they know their own problems the best. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
South Korean government has recently revealed its ambitious plan to foster the nuclear decommissioning industry. This refers to the process of dismantling nuclear facilities until it no longer requires measures for radiation protection. But not everyone is optimistic. Our Ko Ryun-hee tells us more.
In Korea, the idea of nuclear decommissioning as a business emerged in 2017 when the Kori-1 reactor, located in a suburban village in Busan, was permanently shut down. South Korean President Moon Jae-in has been pushing for a nuclear phase-out approach and has called the shutdown an opportunity to accumulate know-how. So what are some opportunities in the field? The Korean government says the nuclear decommissioning market expected to grow from mid-2020s around the world. According to data from gov't, an economic consulting firm, the market is expected to grow to around $105.6 billion by 2030 and keep growing beyond the 2050s. The ministry not only says it will monitor the growing demand for nuclear decommissioning, but has also laid out specific plans to grow the industry. The ministry said it will set up research centers in Korea to carry out R&D and train skilled manpower for the future. Other plans include financial support for companies specializing in nuclear decommissioning, also communicating with foreign companies and defining safety standards. Despite the ambitious plans, some experts are skeptical.
Let's take a look at the trend of using nuclear power plants around the globe. Many are extending the plant's operating lives. For instance, the normal initial operating permit is about 40 years. But an additional 20 years are added. So the number of nuclear power plants subject to decommissioning might decrease.
For this decommissioning to be an industry, there must be project after project. But if there aren't projects for, let's say, 10 years, there's no way to maintain the manpower. And you can't make Korea decommission its nuclear plants just to make this plan work.
Experts agree that in the long run, new technologies related to decommissioning are needed. In the meantime, though, they say the research center should focus on projects like using robots to do dangerous decontamination work remotely. 고르니, Arirang News.
The South Korean superstars BTS have won yet another accolade. On Wednesday in Las Vegas, they became the first Korean artists to win 2 trophies at the Billboard Music Awards. Those were in the categories of Top Social Artist and Top Duo or Group. It's the band's 3rd consecutive time winning Top Social Artist, but their first time to win Top Duo or Group, which is a category not based on votes from fans. At the show, BTS performed their smash hit single, Boy With Love. It's that time of the year again. Spring Travel Week has kicked off, and we now bring you all the details of what's on offer across the nation. Our cultural correspondent, Won Jung-hwan, has the story.
Spring has brought with it ideal weather and the perfect opportunity to enjoy a short getaway. And with the government currently running the Spring Travel Week under the theme of villages, there's no better time to visit one of the 20 travel destinations being featured as part of the 16-day program. Among the recommended spots is Gwangju's radiating youthfulness village located in Jeollabuk-do province. It has been recommended for young couples, and many have gathered to enjoy the sights and free tours. They can also learn how to make handicrafts at workshops or listen to local indie bands. The atmosphere in the village is much livelier compared to a few decades ago when it was completely deserted.
This is my first time learning about this place. I think not many people have heard of it, but I think more young people will likely visit this village more often.
Young couples often like to travel to famous or crowded destinations. But if you come here, you can enjoy peacefulness while finding hidden pictures and messages on the colorful walls.
Special discounts and tour programs are provided at various sites nationwide during Spring Travel Week. Muju's Taekwondo-won, a spacious park dedicated to the country's traditional martial art, also opens its doors for ordinary visitors for a limited time. The world's only museum dedicated to Taekwondo, where you normally have to register to get inside, is free to enter and offers visitors the opportunity to learn the history, spirit, and philosophy of the martial art. After learning about Taekwondo, it's time to watch the spectacular moves from experts. Every day at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., athletes showcase their skills, such as breaking boards that are more than 3 meters off the ground. Here at the world-class arena, visitors from all age groups can come and learn basic techniques necessary to train in Taekwondo, all the while wearing an awesome uniform. Finally, for those who would like to escape the city and see the stars, There's the option to book a room at the Taekwondo One. Located on a beautiful alpine mountain in Jeollabuk-do province, visitors can take in the fresh air and scenery, but just until May 12th. 원정환, 아리랑 뉴스, 무주.
Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon has signed an MOU with Kuwait's Prime Minister to deepen economic and cultural ties between the two countries. He is in Kuwait as part of an 11-day tour of the Middle East and South America. He also visited a local hospital that has medical exchanges with a South Korean hospital and met Korean residents. Colombia is the next stop on Lee's tour, followed by Ecuador. Consumer price growth in Korea stayed below 1% for the fourth month in a row in April. According to Statistics Korea, consumer prices moved up 0.6% on year, mainly due to increased prices of livestock and fishery products. But inflation was held down by declining prices of oil products and slower inflation in services. The government says it will soon reveal the results of its investigation into fires that broke out at local factories making energy storage systems for power grids. The results, which were supposed to come out in March, are to be announced next month. From the summer of 2017 to earlier this year, dozens of fires ravaged facilities belonging to companies including Samsung SDI and LG Chemical. The delay in results is making it hard for affected firms to win new orders. A recent government survey shows over 60% of multicultural families in Korea have lived in the country for more than 10 years. The figure from last year's survey by the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family is a near 13% increase from the previous survey in 2015. Nearly 30% of respondents said they don't find life in Korea difficult, which is up 4 percentage points from 2015. However, those who said they felt lonely in Korea, mainly due to the lack of opportunities to socialize with others, rose by 5.5 percentage points to just over 24%. That has been your 3-minute news flash. It is now time to take a look at some of the digital media content available on Arirang's various social media platforms.
And today we'll be looking at a company that plans and designs environmentally friendly weddings. Take a look.
요즘 결혼식은 너무 허례허식이 많은 것 같아요. 어쩔 수 없이 보여주기식의 행사가 되는 경우도 많은 것 같고요. 저는 그런 결혼식은 못할 것 같아요. 결혼식이라는 게 한 사람의 인생에서 굉장히 큰 이벤트이자 소중한 순간이잖아요. 근데 그런 결혼식으로 인해서 엄청난 양의 쓰레기들과 폐기물 또 환경오염이 일어난다라는 걸 알게 됐어요. 그래서 좀 가치 있는 결혼식을 만들면 어떨까. 그리고 그 결혼식을 만들어가는 사람들이 모두가 좀 행복한 그런 추억을 가질 수는 없을까라는 생각을 하다가 지구 환경에도 좋고 사람에게 이제 좋은 그런 친환경 결혼식을 기획을 하게 됐고요. 그래서 자연스럽게 회사를 운영하게 됐습니다. 결혼식으로 인해 버려지는 거를 최소화해보자라는 게 저희의 미션이었어요. 그래서 웨딩드레스를 대부분은 대여해서 입거든요. 그 웨딩드레스의 수명이 한 3, 4회 정도밖에 되질 않아요. 자연에서 생분해가 되는 천연 소재로 웨딩드레스를 만들어서 입고 예식이 끝난 후에 일상복으로 리폼을 한다든지 해서 평생 간직할 수 있는 옷이면 좋겠다라는 생각을 해서 친환경 웨딩드레스를 만들게 됐고요. 가장 많이 버려지는 것들 중에 하나가 또 꽃장식인데요. 어떻게 하면 좀 덜 버려질까라는 생각을 하다가 이제 뿌리가 다 살아있으면 되겠다. 그러면 버리지 않아도 이 식물을 계속 살 수 있겠구나. 결혼식이 끝난 다음에 오신 하객분들께 다 답례품으로 나눠드리는 걸 하고 있고요. 물론 신부가 드는 부케도 뿌리가 살아있어서 예식 후에 이제 심으면 어떻게 보면 결혼식 기념 식수가 될 수 있는 그런 아이디어들을 내고 있습니다. 나는 모두가 행복한 결혼식을 기획하는 디자이너가 되고 싶다. 나는 자연이 함께 웃는 결혼식을 디자인하고 싶다.
We've only just entered the month of May, but it's already feeling like summer. I didn't even wear a jacket today.
Yeah, me too. And the weather is really warming up these days. For the latest weather forecast, let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Centre. Michelle.
Good evening, guys. Now, you should protect yourselves from the sun, but you should also have your protective masks. Now, levels of yellow dust return to normal for Seoul and the surrounding areas such as Gangwon province, but they are still high in the Gyeongsang province such as Ulsan and Busan as well. Now, clear skies are expected for Friday thanks to the high pressure front off the southwest of the peninsula tomorrow. Now, meanwhile, temperatures in Beijing will reach up into the low 30s, and Tokyo can finally see some dry weather with some sun. Now, the morning temperatures in the nation will be average. Seoul will kick off in the morning at 11 degrees Celsius, while Busan and Jeju begins the day in the mid-teens at 14 and 15 degrees respectively. The daily high in Seoul will be similar to today at 25 degrees, while it will be hotter in the southern regions, reaching up to 27 degrees Celsius. Now, dry conditions and warmer temperatures are expected over the weekend, with the possibility of some cloud cover, which will knock off some of the digits. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that will wrap it up for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you, as always, for watching.
Stay tuned to Arirang for more analysis on current issues on News in Depth coming up next.